Good afternoon, wrestling fans. We are back at it. I'm Jeff Upson. We're going to be joined by Dysen Gould and our correspondent on the field, and that's Eric Knopsnyder. Dysen, we just got done seeing the 145 through 285 quarterfinals and semifinals. You said you were falling asleep because it wasn't as good as the lightweights. I disagree with you. I thought there was a lot of good action going on here. I thought there was a lot of good matchups between some highly ranked wrestlers, and we saw some upsets. We saw a few guys that were, banged up but found ways to get through and make it to the finals. So our finals are set in Hershey. We know who's going to be in the state finals here at 145 through 285 pounds, Dysen. So let's start off now at 145 pounds, and it really started off with a little bit of a bang, right? Because we had some big-time matchups happening. We saw the number one in the state, Levi Haynes, wrestling Patrick Edmondson in the semifinals. But first, my biggest upset was Patrick Edmondson beating Kenny Dushek from Blackhawk 5-1 in the quarterfinals. That was a huge match. Edmondson he's so long and lanky, and he was able to leech on and not let Dushek really do anything. That was a crazy match. Did you catch that one, Dysen?
Yeah, I saw parts of that one. I saw kind of, just like you said, it was a big upset there for Edmondson. Good win over number 3 Dushek.
Yeah, that wasn't the only one that was good in the quarterfinals. Also, you had Cooper Warshaw from Richland wrestling Nathan Higley from Sullivan County. That was a 3-1 win. Caden Berger beat Noah Frack 7-3, so another good match there. And Levi Haynes beat Carter Gill from Hickory, 2 returning state medalists. Every single wrestler in this bracket has a state medal already. So before 2021, all of these wrestlers have at least one state medal going into this round, which is really incredible, and it's pretty impressive. But in the semifinals, Levi Haynes, he took it to Patrick Edmondson. I tell you what, Levi Haynes, we got to see him at True Power. He's on a different level, man. He was a runner-up twice before. He finds a way to get to the finals for a third time by majoring Patrick Edmondson. I really can't see anyone stopping him. On that bottom half, though, we saw a barn burner of a match, and that was Nathan Higley versus Caden Berger from Reynolds. Again, 2 guys that were state medalists a year ago, and Nathan Higley wasn't, but Nathan Higley was a 2-time state medalist. This was a war of a match. Dysen, did you get to see this one? Because literally these guys went down to the wire. And it was a 6-3 tiebreaker win for Nathan Higley of Sullivan County over Caden Berger. There was a little bit of controversy of whether, it should have went into overtime or not. Did you catch that takedown at the end of regulation?
Yeah, I didn't catch that one. I was just looking back and forth between all the matches on the screen, but I saw Eric say something about it. But I didn't catch the takedown there at the edge. Yeah.
So in that match, Nathan Higley, again, he was able to come out on top 6-3, but it was a kind of a strange sequence in the last 30 seconds of that match. There was some blood time there. There was actually a pretty good amount of blood time that happened in the match that kind of stopped it from progressing. Really, it was kind of just a strange. I felt like the match went on forever, if that makes sense. And what happened in the tiebreaker round was Nathan Higley was able to escape and and then actually he added a takedown in the last 5 seconds. He was just kind of running around a little bit. He was excited. I thought that was probably one of the better matches of the semifinals was Higley and Caden Berger. Again, 2 guys that are highly ranked. Caden Berger going to Clarion and Nathan Higley going to George Mason. So just some good quality wrestling from these 2 guys. Dysen, did this one at least wake you up a little bit?
Oh, this was when I was still awake. Yeah, 145. I was awake.
Okay. And what did you think of that match?
It was a good match. It was a barn burner. A lot of action. That was a good one.
So in the finals, we're going to have Levi Haynes, number 1 in the state, versus Nathan Higley from Sullivan County. What are your thoughts on this one? Because we know how impressive Levi Haynes has been recently. Is Nathan Higley, he's got the hot hand right now. Is he going to be a threat at all to Levi Haynes to stop him from getting his first state title?
I don't think Higley gets the win, but I think he'll be able to keep it maybe a little bit closer than the Haynes' first couple of matches and keep it to a decision. He beat Gill by 9, beat Edmondson by 8. I'd say Haynes by 6-point win or so. A couple maybe like three to four takedowns, a ride out, and maybe Higley gets a takedown escape, something like that. I think it'll be a controlled wins for Levi Haynes.
Yeah, and I failed to mention kind of the sequence in the end of that third period with Higley and Berger. It was a takedown, then a reversal. So it was a takedown for Higley with about 7 seconds left, and then Berger got the reversal to tie it up 3-3. So that was the sequence of events there, and it just kind of was it was a weird position to see if there was actually a reversal or not. Each one had an escape going into that. Then literally that flurry in the last 10 seconds kind of changed the pace of that match. So the 145-pound match it coming up in the finals, I think should be a good one, but I agree with you. I think Levi Haynes is probably the guy, that's clearly favored in this match. Let's go up to 152 pounds, where we saw a lot of ranked wrestlers going head-to-head, a lot of top 5 guys going head-to-head early. Quite a number of guys that had been to Hershey before but had not placed. Devin Deem of Montgomery, he got a 10-0 win over Jack Rimpa. He really opened that up in the second period. I think he scored like 7 points in the second period and then added on another 2 at the end of the third period. He beats Jack Rimpa. Dalton Gimber from Hamburg beats Connor Yoder 5-0 that's a freshman from North Star. Luke Moore falls to Michael Dugan of Boiling Springs. That was a 7-4 match. Alan Alexander falls to Grant McKay of Laurel. He falls to him 9-0 major decision. So some good results there. A couple major decisions, a couple closer matches, but the semifinals here got a little bit dicey. Dalton Gimber beats Devin Deem, and I know we have Eric on the line right now, so I'm going to toss it over to you, Eric, because you got to talk to Dalton Gimber after that match, and that was a wild, that was a good match, but it came down to the end there.
Yeah, it was a wild one. Sorry, they've cranked up the music now. I hope you guys can hear me. The last session was pretty good, but now they decided to bring the music back in full force here.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Is that what it is?
We haven't heard "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor" yet,
okay.
But we did hear "Sandstorm" earlier, I think. So they're keeping up with tradition.
I need some loud music or something.
Yeah, you're taking a nap over there, Dyson? What's going on?
Yeah, something's wrong with that kid.
I got a great screenshot though of your face frozen that I think is going to be like my wallpaper from now on. It looks fantastic. So yeah, a little bit of connection problems here. I'm sorry. What was the original question?
Dalton Gimber. Tell us a little bit about Dalton Gimber against Devin Deem. 9-5 win that he had in the semifinals. A kind of back and forth match though.
Yeah, that was a big one. Obviously, a change from last week. Deem had beaten him before, so that was a huge one for Gimber. He said, he just kind of had to attack it a little differently. And, yeah, very big victory for him there to get into the 152-pound final.
And on the bottom half, Grant McKay of Laurel wins 4-2 over Michael Dugan. That was a closer match than I think some people expected. Michael Dugan's a guy who's been around. He hasn't made it to the state medal round until this year. Grant McKay is only a sophomore now in AA. I think this sets up a pretty nice match in the finals. Dalton Gimmer is a kid that we've seen for the last, I feel like he's been around forever. We saw him at the Surge multiple times. He's been at 4 different weights all throughout his career, 13, 32, 38, 45. Now he's up to 152. This is going to be an interesting match, but Grant McKay just seems to have a different level of gear that he can go into. Eric, would you agree that Grant McKay is just, he's that favorite?
I do think he's the favorite. Like you said, though, that was a little closer semifinal than I would have guessed there. I didn't get to see much of that one, but I would have thought that he would have opened it up a little bit more there. So I don't know. It might be a little bit closer match, or even Gimbor might be able to get one there in the finals. I don't know. I'm not feeling as confident about McKay after the semifinal round as I would have been coming into the day.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of, again, we talk about momentum on this type of day, and the goal is advancing. So he's advancing, and now if he wrestles like he did at Midwinter Mayhem, he's gonna do just fine against Dalton Gimbor. But again, that's a quick turnaround, and it just depends on that preparation going into this match. 160 pounds was probably my favorite weight coming into this, just because of all the high quality depth that we have here. Holden Garcia, Ryan Weint, Cole Casilio, Avery Bassett, Bailey Gimbor, AJ Corrado, Nolan Lear. It was all good. And in fact, the one match that I said was a must-see ended up being a tiebreaker 2 match, and that was AJ Corrado over Nolan Lear 2-1. I feel like AJ Corrado just always finds ways to win. Eric, you got to see that one. What were your thoughts on AJ? Kind of similar to Ian Oswalt with Connor Hare from Montgomery earlier today.
Well, Corrado, I actually kind of knocked him down a peg in my thought process for this week, because he just keeps winning by like 1 point. He hasn't been dominant in the postseason. It's all been 1 point. But as you said, it doesn't matter how you win at this point. It's just keep winning, and that's all AJ Corrado does is keep winning. He keeps, he finds a way to get a 1 point win, and that's all you need in the postseason.
Yeah, and he looked better in the semifinals, I thought, against Bailey Gimbor than he did in that quarterfinal round with Nolan Lear. Now, Nolan Lear's, he's good, right? He just picked up his 100th win. He's wrestling back. But AJ, I thought, looked better against Bailey Gimbor than he did in that quarterfinal, which sets up a really nice finals match with Avery Bassett. But first, before we do that, Holden Garcia beats Ryan Weint 6-2, kind of in control of that match. Bassett beats Casilio 3-0. The main match of the semifinals had to be that Garcia and Bassett match, and it started with a clock malfunction where they were waiting around for like 20 minutes, it seemed like, to get that match going. So it was a weird wait period. But man, that was a heck of a match, Eric, and I know you got to see it, but Avery Bassett comes out with a 5-4 decision in tiebreaker 2 to get the win. I mean, he was pumped up after that match.
Yeah, and it was a fun one to watch, as you said. I know we were kind of texting back and forth, and I said, all right, this should be a fun one here with these two, and it definitely lived up to the hype. I think Garcia went ahead early, and then Bassett was able to get, I think, an escape and a takedown to take the lead. Garcia got another escape to get back into the match, and that tied it up. And then we went to tiebreaker. I mean, it was just a great back and forth match, and Avery Bassett comes out on top. Big victory for him. I talked to him, as you said, he was really excited, as he should be, to get to the finals and now get a chance to face AJ Corrado, who, as he pointed out, they're both team dominant guys. So little link there for them, even though they're not on the same side of the state or in the same room, but kind of the same club. So he was excited about it.
Yeah. Both those guys have been on multiple Team Nauman travel teams, and it's interesting because both these guys have been close before, right? AJ was second last year. Avery Bassett battled back for third last year. They were ranked 1 and 2 in the state for most of the year. Avery Bassett did not have the greatest East Super region, but he bounced back. And like you said, Eric, he gave up the initial takedown. So he gave up the initial takedown, and Garcia gets an escape to go up 3-0. Then at the end of the second period was huge. With 18 seconds left, Bassett was able to get a takedown. He started the third period with an escape to cut it to 3-2. That was really where that's where the tide started to turn in Avery Bassett's favor, and you could kind of feel the momentum going that way. Dysen, I'm assuming you were asleep during the 160, or did you get to see this one?
I mean, the 20 minutes to start the match didn't help, but
I didn't. You're right.
I did see this one. It was a good one. Like you guys said, I'm really looking forward to this. I also, like you guys were saying, Corrado, I was kind of thinking what Eric was thinking. It knocked him down a little bit with wrestling so close, as Eric and I have both seen him the last 2 weeks in person, and there's probably all been like no more than 3-point matches probably, and so he but if he just finds a way to win, and so excited to see us one here in the finals and see if Bassett can maybe take advantage and capitalize on Corrado keeping the matches close and maybe pull one off here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are the experts on AJ Corrado. You've seen him for the last few weeks. Literally, I mean, last week at the West Super Region, 3-1, tiebreaker, overtime, sudden victory, all throughout. And then he starts off the tournament, tiebreaker, 3-1. So, I mean, he only has one more close match to win, and that's it. So
I think maybe he was confused because he didn't start out with McMonagle from Central this time. 'Cause every other time he starts out wrestling him in the first round, so he wasn't sure quite if this counted yet or how it worked.
That's true. That could be it. Eric, let's go up to 172 pounds where, man, some great semifinals there. So let's talk about the quarterfinals first. Gavin Garcia fall in a minute. Malachi Duval major decision over Jake Jones, Saucon Valley. Ben Halbert had a nice 7-3 win over Ethan Barr. Ethan Barr, not a easy out there. And Rune Lawrence gets a fall, go figure, in 5 minutes 41 seconds over Ethan Gush. Gavin Garcia, Malachi Duval. Obviously, one match that we said if we were going to see in the semifinals was must watch because that's a number 1 versus number 3. Both these guys were third in the state last year. Both these guys have state, medals to their names, including that third place medal. Malachi Duval falls to Rune Lawrence in the last 2 weeks. We weren't sure necessarily how he was going to be, and Dyson and I were talking about it. It looked like clearly he was injured. His knee is banged up somehow. He's able to survive Gavin Garcia 4-2 in sudden victory. That last takedown in sudden victory, it was like Garcia was going for a throw and Malachi Duval just kind of stepped through it. Eric, what were your thoughts on the ground there? What did it look like happened?
You know what? I just saw the end of it, and I thought it was 2. What was interesting was Malachi didn't know if it was 2. He actually said, I could hear him Matt side. He said, "Is it over? Is that it?" And the ref's like, "Yeah, it's over. You're good. It's a takedown. It's over." And then he was just so excited. I mean, that was probably the most emotion that I've seen today. He's running around saying, "Let's go." Went up and hugged his family. It was a big, big moment. And I don't know if you've gotten to see the interview yet that I did with him, but he actually mentioned the knee in that. And then he said he called it devastating news about his knee this week. So it sounds like he's going to wrestle tonight and then go get it taken care of next week.
Wow, that's tough. You hate to see that. And this was a similar match to that Avery Bassett Holden Garcia match because Gavin Garcia had the opening takedown. So injury time for Malachi early with that knee, but then Gavin Garcia gets the takedown in the first period, and Malachi Duval, he takes neutral in the second period, so doesn't go down. Third period, he gets a takedown to push it into overtime, and all of a sudden he gets the takedown to win it. So it was the match momentum really swung from Garcia all the way to Duval. Dyson, what were your thoughts here? I know you talked about the injury. Does that, is that going to change the way he approaches this third match with Rune Lawrence, Dyson?
I think that was a great win there for Duval, gutting it out. It looked like every time he got up to his feet, he was limping on it, and so hobbled a little bit. So it was great for him to got that win out and reach the finals again and face Lawrence, like you said. I think I'm going to take Lawrence again in this one for the third time in a row, but I think it's going to be real close like it has been in the last 2 times.
Well, and Eric, last 2 times they've wrestled, Malachi Duval's jumped out ahead in both those matches. He's got to find ways to close out these matches with Rune Lawrence. Do you think that game plan is going to play out for him here tonight?
He told me, I asked him, when I talked to him last week, I said, "Would you like to see Rune again in the finals?" And he said, "That'd be perfect." And so I asked him about it today. I said in the interview, I said, "Well, you got what you wanted." I said, "What do you have to do differently to avoid that same fate?" And he said, "I'm not going to tell you what my game plan is," but he said, "We've got a game plan, and we're confident that we stick to it, wrestle fundamentally strong, that I can come out with the victory." So Rune Lawrence, he's obviously a tough customer, but Malachi Duval very confident that he can get it done this week when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously the only one that matters. And if you missed the semifinal match that Rune was in, he had a 1-0 win over Ben Halbert of Palisades. He was able to ride him out to get that win. Very tough match that he had to fight through to win that over Ben Halbert, 1-0. So, he's just so tough from top that, I'm sure that plays into Malachi Duval's, his plan, his operation for this evening match. Eric, you got a bounce? I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'll tell you what. I can do 189 quick because Ethan Finch was kind of interesting too. That
All
I
right.
talked with.
So let's go up to 189 pounds. Cale Krebs beats Ian Eckenrode from Cambria Heights, 16-8. Trent Schulteis beats Bryce Enders from Halifax. That was a tight 5-3 win. Wesley Barnes beats Karpinski from Greenville 2-1. Very good quarterfinals matches here. Ethan Finch then gets a fall over Saucon Valley. The semifinals. Cale Krebs kind of dominates Trent Schulteis. These guys have gone back and forth in their careers, and I don't think Schulteis has ever beaten Krebs before. But Ethan Finch beats Wesley Barnes in tiebreaker 2. It's all these matches were going in tiebreaker. Eric, what can you tell us about Ethan Finch? He's going to Pitt. We're big fans of him. He was 4th in the Super 32 this year. He won the West Super Region. He had to gut it out against a very tough sophomore in Wesley Barnes.
Well, first off, congrats to Sheffield. I got to admit, I didn't know anything about Sheffield before. He's their first ever state finalist. He's only last year, he became only the 3rd medalist in school history. So not a strong wrestling history there. But Ethan Finch has done a great job. Talked to him. He was obviously excited again, running up to the family, hugging them. So, even though it's a different atmosphere here, it's still cool to see that whenever a guy's able to gut out a win like that. And it was just really cool to talk to him. Again, he was somebody that was really humbled, and excited to be able to kind of put his school on the map and give them their first ever state finalist, and is excited for the opportunity to go out and wrestle a guy like Cale Krebs, who's a great wrestler in his own right.
Yeah, 2 Division I commits here with Cale Krebs going to Navy, Ethan Finch going to Pitt. Cale Krebs was 3rd last year in the state. It was his 2nd trip to Hershey last year. Ethan Finch, same thing. State qualifier as a sophomore. He was 6th in the state last year. Ethan Finch was. This is 1 and 2 in the state. Cale Krebs number 1, Finch number 2. Krebs, as I mentioned, took care of business against Schulteis, and he looked pretty good in doing it. It's almost like, does Finch have enough magic left in that lamp to get him that championship? That's kind of what I lean towards. Not saying he's a Cinderella story, but Krebs is just such a
He
tall
is a little
task
bit
there.
because, again, we don't ever hear anything about Sheffield. I mean, he's a guy that, even though as good as he is, he kind of flies under the radar because he's not wrestling at a Reynolds or, a place like that where he's going to big-time events and you're hearing about him all the time.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He definitely flies under the radar just by virtue of the school he's at. Eric, we appreciate your time. I know you got to run. You got to get coverage of the finals and the consolation semifinals. So we appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep.
See ya.
Dysen, you finally woke up around 215 pounds, and this was a good weight to wake up for. Dylan Bennett, Montoursville, gets a fall over Eli Reese in the first period. Mahaffrey from Saucon Valley beats Parker Moore 5-4 in the quarterfinals. That was a really good match. Parker Moore, of course, is the guy who last week stormed into the West Super Region Finals before losing to Dayton Pitzer, state 6th place last year. Hayden Linkeroff fell to Nate Wickersham from Tamaqua. That was a 2-0 decision, and Dayton Pitzer does what Dayton Pitzer does best, and that's get a fall over Savari Shelton of Bermudian Springs to reach the semifinals. So in the semifinals, we had number 2 in the state, Dylan Bennett, versus number 8, Dante Mahaffrey from Saucon Valley, and then we had Dayton Pitzer, number 1, versus number 3, Nate Wickersham. Now, if you watched that Dayton Pitzer match, now it was the last match of the day because of how the mat was behind. Pitzer just dominated this, and this was a 1 versus 3. He has a win over Dylan Bennett from the Powerade tournament. That was a tournament that Pitzer finished 2nd to Nick Feldman in, but he looked really good in that match against Bennett. Bennett is a guy who I think, being in this state finals last year is obviously poised and ready for this one, but I just don't think there's anyone that can remotely stop Dayton Pitzer at all. Do you agree with that, Dyson?
Yeah, I think both these guys have been on a collision course so far, making it to the finals. But I don't see Bennett taking out Pitzer. I think Pitzer's just on another level here and gonna get his second state title.
Yeah, and it'll be his first state title in 2 years after that injury kept him out all of last year after winning a state title as a freshman. At the PIAA tournament, Pitzer beat Bennett 6-1. That was in the semifinals of the PIAA tournament. It was a convincing 6-1 win for him. Pitzer, again, we saw him against Wickersham just rack up points. And I'm telling you, for an undersized 215-pounder, there's no one that's going to be able to touch, Dayton Pitzer. Obviously, his 2 losses to Feldman are that's okay. Feldman's college ready. You can take 2 losses to Nick Feldman and still be one of the best in the state, as Dayton Pitzer is. I'm looking forward to the match because it is a number 1 versus 2 match, but I just feel like that gap maybe is a little bit larger, between a 1 and 2 here between Pitzer and Bennett. Would you agree, Dyson?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go up to heavyweight. You definitely were not awake for heavyweight, so I'm going to have to remind you of what happened here, Dyson. Riley Robel from Bishop McDevitt. This was him versus Jalen Stevens was one match that I had circled. I wanted to see because Robel from Bishop McDevitt last year was a state qualifier at 182 pounds. He's all the way up to heavyweight, and boy, did he look big. He looked good. Jalen Stevens, 2-time state medalist. He was just unable to get anything going versus Robel. He loses 5-1 to the sophomore. Now, you look at the rankings, and the rankings don't – I'm going to defend myself on the rankings here because out in the West, there was a lot of guys returning state qualifiers and state medalists. In the East, you had a couple guys that had made it to the state tournament but never placed, so they were kind of lower on the list. Robel came in ranked 6th in the state, but – really, he was 29-0 coming into that semifinals. He was right in the mix with those top 6 guys, those top 5 guys. Marvin Beatty, this was a number 2 in the state. He goes down to Emmanuel Ulrich from Mifflinburg. That was a good match there, 7-2 win for Ulrich. Also, just a sophomore out of Mifflinburg. I was excited to see him get that win. However, that set up a sophomore battle between Robel and Ulrich, and it ended up being a win for Robel by fall. That was a great dominating performance. After that performance against Ulrich, who's very good in his own right, I was thinking, man, Robel has a really good shot to win this state title. And on that bottom half, you saw Nathan Taylor come through with a fall over Caleb Burkhart from Hughesville in the first quarterfinal round, and then has a tough time, in my opinion, watching that against Hogan Sawinski from Bermudian Springs. He beat him 5-1, but that was a lot tighter than I think the score indicates. Dyson, were you able to see anything of Nathan Taylor? I know you guys shared a football field together. You guys, he probably could hurt you pretty bad, but, Nathan Taylor looked pretty good. I thought maybe the semifinals he was a little bit more tested.
Yeah, maybe I wasn't really expecting that. Didn't really know much about Swensky coming into that match, but Taylor was able to get the 5-1 win, and like I said, maybe was looking for a little bit more of a margin there for Taylor, but he got the win nonetheless and reached the finals against Rebel.
Yeah, and I think, looking back at some things, and it's like, okay, well, clearly Robel was underrated, and Nathan Taylor just blew through the West Super Region last week. He was kind of on another tier, and Jalen Stevens is the guy who has placed twice in the state before at this weight, and he just hasn't materialized this year. He's had some health issues. There was weight issues, so he has a 3rd and 4th place finish in the state already at heavyweight. You got to think, okay, he's going to be in the mix, right? Doesn't have the greatest postseason, comes in, loses to Robel. I just personally think Robel was underrated, being an undefeated heavyweight. However, you're coming up from 182, right? It's hard to gauge and hard to judge and say, okay, well, how are you going to perform at heavyweight against these guys that have been there for several years? Robel really stepped up to the challenge, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a heck of a match between him and Nate Taylor. Both guys are very athletic. They're built like football players. You can tell they're linemen, linebackers of some sort, just the way they move and their motion. I'm excited to see these two go at it because I think it's going to be an absolute war, and I really do think that it's going to be a toss-up match. Maybe before this weekend, I would have said I favored Nathan Taylor, but honestly, after seeing Robel, I really think this is a toss-up match, Dyson.
Give me my guy Nathan Taylor.
All day, you're not even going to hesitate.
Nathan Taylor.
You're not even gonna you're just that's it.
Nathan Taylor.
Okay, all right. Did you watch Riley Robel? I mean, did you? He looked pretty good, Dyson.
Nathan Taylor.
Okay, all right. You heard it here first, folks. I mean,
Hey,
this is the
Louis
same
Gill's
person.
Louis Gill's also about to win the state title at 106.
Louis Gill's going to win a state title at 106. Okay. And Iowa Hawkeyes they're all going to win national championships, right? Every single one of them.
I'm not
Lee,
that.
DeSanto, Ironman, Max Murin's going to win it. Caleb Young's going to win it. The Bull. All right, all of them are going to win it, right?
I'm not that crazy.
Okay. You are crazy, but just not that crazy. So that's a huge time matchup. I'm really excited for that one. Wrestling is starting now. Right now, the consolation semifinals are going on at 4 o'clock. That's for 106 through 138. And then the placement matches will start at 5 for 106 through 138. Then they'll come back at 7 for the consolation semifinals of 145 and 285. Then the finals are all matches, placement matches for the 145 through 285 will start at 8 o'clock. So we got a long night ahead of us. Make sure you come back to us tomorrow when we're talking about AAA. We'll be doing the same thing in AAA. We'll be talking about all the action from the quarterfinals and semifinal round. So, and obviously stay tuned to PA Power Wrestling on Rockfin on social media because we got a ton of content coming at you. Eric Knopsnyder's on the ground. He's getting interviews with guys. We got Mark Billett taking photos. Dyson and I are sitting back and kind of analyzing from afar all the action that are going on. So make sure you stay with us. We appreciate you joining us. Again, shout out to Eric Knopsnyder at the Giant Center for taking the time out to talk with us. Dyson, go get a nap, bro.
So you're saying I should sleep through these Conti semis?
I mean, I would. Champions, man. I'm all about the championships. I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
I'm not gonna.
Maybe I should go outside and do something real quick.
Yeah, go for a walk. It's nice outside.
It is.
All right,
nice
Dyson. We will see you later tonight. Okay.
Yep.
All right. See ya.